Tonight, a call for the Ministry of Health in St. Lucia to provide incentives to attract more citizens to get vaccinated. A carnival enthusiast says allowing vaccinated parties should be a valid consideration by local authorities. And following Lisa Jawair's assurance that an SLP government will address the infringement of rights of the LGBTQI community, the church makes its position clear. The details of these stories and more coming up.
This is the Hot 7 Nightly News with Lovelace and Amy Joseph.
Good night. It is Friday, the 14th of May, 2021. Welcome to the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. I'm Lovelace St. Amy Joseph. Thank you for joining us. Social commentator Richard Pitakin is calling on the Ministry of Health to pursue incentivizing its vaccination program so that those fully vaccinated can enjoy less stringent COVID-19 protocols. The call comes amid news that various states across the U.S. are incentivizing their programs to benefit those who choose to vaccinate. However, Pitakin says incentivization on its own may not be enough. Nisha Charles reports.
Studies show that financial incentives can get people to change their health behaviors. A 2019 research review found that monetary rewards helped smokers to quit cigarettes. Other studies found that incentives encouraged participation in employer-sponsored wellness and fitness programs and convinced people to eat fruits and vegetables. When it comes to COVID-19, that pattern seems to hold, as some cities and states across the U.S. are shelling out big bucks to persuade people to get vaccinated. And when financial incentives may not be ideal, lessening of restrictions may be the better bet. Social commentator Richard Pitakin believes that may help St. Lucia's vaccination campaign.
Senator Roger talked about, incentivizing schemes that would let people know that if in fact you've got both vaccinations, you can now move around travel-wise a lot easier than if you didn't. That only works though if the countries themselves bring that, the vaccination into their policy. So a number of our Caribbean countries have now said that if you're double vaccinated, you only have to quarantine for 2 days, whereas in St. Lucia we're still 2 weeks. Now, I think they're looking at that policy and trying to see whether they should change that. But until they do, there's no incentive necessarily as far as travel is concerned. But we're more concerned with how the incentives for local, so that if you are now telling St. Lucians that, okay, if you've had the vaccine, we can now go to cinema can open, but they're going to ask you for your vaccine card.
Pitakin believes that this tactic, however, may open up an entire can of worms where sections of society can ask of people to get vaccinated or face varying consequences.
If an employee is not vaccinated, that then he loses his job. And the answer is no, you can't. The labor code does not allow you to change the condition of employment. You can make that a new condition for new employees, but not exist. What you can do is say, I want you to go and get a test. But then the employer has to pay for that. So a number of companies have already, one company in particular, a hotel, already put that policy out and said that basically the employees will have to get a test once a week at their expense. Otherwise, they don't have a job. I don't know if it's been challenged, but the law has not changed.
Pitakin says that incentivizing only works up to a particular point.
I tried to do it in my business by incentivizing, by paying everybody $100 to go and get a vaccine. And I still have a third of people that haven't. So money alone is never going to be enough. It has to be convincing and certainly making them realize that you're going to be a lot freer to move around and do things.
A behavioral economist at the University of California, San Diego, who studies incentives, cautions participants, saying that incentives work when they go beyond a monetary benefit. He advises that the best incentives are when you encircle a society with enough benefits if people get vaccinated and enough hoops if they don't. For the Hot 7 News, Nisha Charles reporting.
If your social life has gone down the drain since 2020, then news of vaccinated parties may be of particular interest. Countries have enticed revelers to get vaccinated and enjoy one-of-a-kind events amid COVID restrictions for the rest of the population. Here in St. Lucia, a carnival enthusiast says he is looking forward to the day when St. Lucians can engage in such, albeit within certain guidelines.
A one-of-a-kind in-person carnival event in the U.S. Virgin Islands in April was a major step forward for live events in the Caribbean. The event, which was two-pronged, sought to encourage vaccinations locally and raise funds for the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The one-night, one-fete event was open to 200 people, all of whom had to be vaccinated in order to attend, while physical distancing, mask wearing, and proper hand hygiene were expected to be enforced. While St. Lucia still awaits the day that it will be able to hold such an event, a carnival enthusiast is more than ready for such to take place. Red Carnival Band director Thaddeus Antoine says he looks forward to such an event in a practical and realistic way.
Yeah, we all craving for parties, particularly people who are involved in promotion, like an fete like myself. We all craving for a party. We're looking for carnival. But we must still follow the protocols and still follow the guidance laid down to us by the Chief Medical Officer. I'm looking forward to having vaccine fetes. You know, if you're fully vaccinated, having a fete. But we're still in some guidance from the Chief Medical Officer as to what is to be allowed with numbers, because the restrictions and the protocols as it stands is still at 10 people. We can't have a fete of 10 people. Yeah, so we want to see if the numbers will be increased to allow for fetes. And what are the parameters? And we're hoping the parameters will be, you got to be fully vaccinated.
To help the process along, Antoine opines that perhaps health officials could incentivize attendance at these events on conditions of being fully vaccinated.
I think the way is to go is to be fully vaccinated to allow fetes. We still some level of protocols. I think also what it does, because of all the vaccine hesitancy we have in Ireland as well and throughout the world, perhaps if you say to St. Lucians that you could only attend a public function if you're fully vaccinated, then it might encourage more people to take the vaccine. I see also the government may want to look at the aspect of incentivizing people by way of grocery vouchers or something of that sort, to say every time you get vaccinated, you get a voucher of what is $250 to go to a supermarket or someplace, a pharmacy, to get some stuff. I think we have to find ways to get, because you see, the cost of not being vaccinated is going to be far more greater than actually providing vouchers to people.
As for vaccinated carnival, Antoine believes that requires way more policing. For the Hot 7 News, Nisha Charles reporting.
Opposition Senator Lisa Jawahir is on record saying that a St. Lucia Labour Party government will advocate and lobby for changes to be made to ensure LGBTQ rights are upheld and safeguarded. St. Lucia is touted as a Christian society where most churches oppose matters such as same-sex marriage, standing by the traditional definition of marriage as being between a man and a woman. But global views are changing as LGBTQI rights are viewed as human rights. So in this modern era, where does the church stand? And will the Catholic Church support the state in advancing the cause of the LGBTQI community? Most countries in the Caribbean still uphold what many argue are outdated buggery laws. The Eastern Caribbean Alliance for Diversity and Equality argues that while buggery laws are rarely enforced, keeping them on the statute books marginalizes LGBTQI people and sanctions violence and discrimination against them. Over the years, attempts to have buggery laws overturned in Caribbean countries have been met with fierce opposition by churches, some of which formed coalitions to protest efforts to strike buggery laws off the books or legalize same-sex marriage. Ahead of her Senate contribution last week, opposition Senator Lisa Jawahir made it clear that the St. Lucia Labour Party will look to advance the cause of the LGBTQI community. She says the party appreciates that their basic human rights have been infringed upon for too long.
The Labour Party has always maintained this position on being a very inclusive party. And first and foremost, what is important for all of us to pay attention to is that this is an infringement on the basic human rights of those persons. All right, if we follow closely the UN Declaration of Human Rights, we are infringing on freedom of expression of those persons. And we may think it's just a small percentage of the population. It certainly is not. There are many members of St. Lucia who have struggled with coming out, have struggled with expressing themselves, and who simply want to live normally like every one of us. And why should we rob them of that? As to exactly what will happen, there will be certainly more discussion on that. We will definitely engage that LGBTQ community to, ascertain what more it is that they require, how else they are affected. But certainly we are an inclusive party, and we intend to give them a listening ear and see how best we can accommodate.
But would a possible SLP government, in its attempt to advance and secure greater LGBTQI rights, face opposition from churches? The campaign for changing buggery laws and introducing same-sex marriage laws has put pro-LGBTQI activists at loggerheads with religious leaders and their followers. Archbishop Robert Rivas says the church has a moral voice in society and must take a stand on issues. He says while the church advocates love and respect for all human beings, including the LGBTQI community, the word remains clear on what is immoral.
The issue of the church with the problem of homosexuality is not the inclination or the possibility that somebody may be this way, but is the acting out of homosexuality. Like, if it's like, somebody who is straight, is married, and becomes unfaithful in the marriage, then the church says this is immoral, and this is not right. And the same thing if somebody, our sexuality is ordained for a purpose by God, and when we act contrary to that purpose for which it was ordained, then the church says this is immoral, this is not right.
The Archbishop says if the state were to move in the direction of changing marriage and buggery laws, these laws would not be recognized as moral laws by the church.
A lot of laws are made and they are legitimate because they are made in a country, but that doesn't mean to say that in terms of the morality underlying the law that it's the right thing to do. And this is again where the church will have issues with societies that legislate for things like, for instance, abortion.
In an interview with the BBC in January 2020, the Eastern Caribbean Alliance for Diversity and Equality explained that it is in the throes of legal challenges in 5 Eastern Caribbean countries that still outlaw buggery and indecency, including St. Lucia. The head of the organization, Kenita Placid, says the group is prepared to take its fight all the way to the country's highest courts. Stay with us, still to come. As vaccination distribution remains vastly uneven, the World Health Organization urges wealthier countries not to vaccinate children, but instead donate these vaccines to low-income countries through COVAX. Joanna Joseph intensifies her campaign for answers regarding her teenage son's death at the hands of police. And a man in a red dress, straw hat, and a handbag robs a CIBC branch.